Good afternoon and welcome to the afternoon session of the Planning Development Control. I have said this several times, but just for the benefit of the new members of the public, my name is Therese Evans. I'm Chair of the Planning Development Control. Next to me on my right is Councillor Jane Rutter, the Vice Chairman. On my left is Julie Pinnock, the Service Lead for Built Environment. Down the end of the table is Fiona Sutherland, our legal representative, and sitting at the back is Matthew Watson, who's clerking the meeting, and then the members of the committee are sitting on both sides. The case officer always sits here, and that is Nicola Clayton when we get there. Few reminders, please turn off your mobile phones or put them on silent. Not expecting a fire drill, so if you hear the fire alarm, it is the real thing. And just a reminder that this application is being recorded and live streamed on the council's website, and then afterwards the YouTube photographic recording will be uploaded onto the council's YouTube. So we move on then to the first item of business, which is agenda item 10, 21/002454/FUL. This is for a replacement residential dwelling with accompanying garage at the holding Little Bull Lane, Waltham Chase. The case officer is Nicola Clayton, and when you're ready, Nicola, we're ready to hear your presentation.
Thank you, Chair. As the Chair said, the application is the holding Little Bull Lane, Waltham Chase. The site is on the eastern side of Little Bull Lane. The surrounding area is rural, including a mixture of residential, informal, paddocks and agricultural fields. And here is an aerial view of the site. Here we have the block plan showing the proposed dwelling to the south of the site, and at the top of the site is the existing bungalow. I think here is actually showing it without the extension. This extension that was done under PD to the side of the dwelling. We also have an existing storage building here, and down here is the proposed garage. A photo of the site looking north. You can see here the bungalow, the extension to the bungalow, and the existing store building. And again here just showing part of the residential garden. And then looking down on the site. So it's proposed for a replacement dwelling. The existing dwelling will be demolished once the replacement dwelling has been built, and there is a safeguarding condition for this. So here we have the front elevation, followed by the rear elevation of the dwelling, and the side elevations. The ground floor plan, and the first floor plan. Here we have the elevation of the detached garage, car parking underneath. There's an access staircase to the upper floor, rear elevation. And here we have the floor plan showing the garage, storage area, and then upper floor of the garage. There's a window here, and there is a condition imposed to restrict this window to being obscure glazed, just to prevent any perceived overlooking. Here we have the lane, Little Bull Lane, looking north, and then we have the entrance to the site. And here we are, looking south, and we have the entrance here and the fencing. It's proposed that the application is permitted subject to condition. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before I move to public speaking, I forgot to declare a personal interest, non-prejudicial, as I do know the applicant, Mr. Ollie Duckworth's parents. They run a business in the square, but I've had no personal involvement in this application, so it's a non-prejudicial, just a personal matter of interest. So I have done public speakers, but I don't believe that either of these people are here. So is there someone representing the parish council? No. And then it's Mr. Eric Cox who's speaking. Yes. So do you want to stay there, or do you want to come across and speak to us, wherever you like? Yeah, so you have 3 minutes. The clock will come up on the screen as it has now. As soon as you start speaking, it will begin the countdown, and we'll take it back to 3 minutes. So when you're ready.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on the applicant's behalf. I've carefully read your officer's report, which I consider fairly addresses both the policy framework and the objections of both the parish council and others living locally. The applicant has worked closely with your planning officer, and in her report, she has set out all the relevant planning policies in your local plan, and also refers to supplementary planning guidance applicable to this case. She has concluded that the proposal satisfies these policies and refers to the National Planning Policy Guidance, NPPF, which, as you know, requires applications to be determined in accordance with the development plan, in this case your local plan, unless material considerations indicate otherwise. Are there any material considerations to outweigh these policies? She is satisfied there is none, and not unnaturally I agree with her. The main thread of the parish council's objection is with respect misguided. They state the land is being used as industrial storage and that a commercial business is operating there. That is incorrect. Mr. Duckworth is a self-employed electrician and parks his work vehicle in his driveway, as is common practice. The application is domestic only. He does not seek any industrial or commercial use. All he wants is a house for himself, his partner and young family to live and work in the area where they both grew up in. To summarise, it is a replacement dwelling with a quite proper planning condition stipulating the demolition of the existing and reinstatement of the land within 3 months of occupation of the new dwelling. I confirm that the family are currently living in the existing dwelling. The proposed siting was selected to ensure that there was no adverse impact on the amenities of those living locally. The application does not remove or harm any significant habitat. The proposed landscape design provides a net gain in biodiversity value as new native planting will be introduced. The officer's report confirms the application, being a replacement, not an additional dwelling, is nitrate compliant, and an assessment of the impact of nitrates is thankfully not required. Finally, as your planning officer confirms the proposal is policy compliant and recommends permission, I hope you will all agree with it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It could be that there are some questions of clarification for you from the committee. Members, any questions? Councillor Roger?
Thank you, Chair. The report talks about any significant business use would require a further planning application. I notice in the plans for the house that there is a treatment room. So there's already facilities for some sort of business to be run from the house. Can you just reassure us that this is going to be a very occasional use, please?
Yes, intentionally it's for family and friends only. She's a beauty therapist and she has a place in Wickham itself where she operates from. So it's just purely for family use only. She knows full well, because I'm a retired planning consultant, and she knows only too well that if she does anything further than that, she would need planning permission.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions? No. Nicola, anything you want to add?
No, just that the applicant has actually confirmed that in writing as well, that it's going to be occasional use of family and friends.
Okay, thank you. So we move then to the report and questions thereon. So principle of development and design and layout, page 97 and 98. Councillor Rotter.
I know this is a concern of local residents, but I know that there's a condition that says that after 3 months, the bungalow has to be demolished after 3 months after the new house has been occupied. But if the owners stepped in with another application to keep the bungalow, I mean, what sort of safeguards are there to ensure that this is a one-for-one replacement? That's what I really want to check. Thank you.
Well, the condition there is for safeguarding that, because an additional dwelling there could be contrary to policy. So they would actually have to put in a planning application if they wanted to keep the dwelling, and then that would be assessed on its own merits. But we can be assured by this application that we're approving or wanting to approve a replacement dwelling and not an additional dwelling.
Any further questions? So let's move on. Well, no, design and layout. I know that, Nicola, you said in your presentation about the window in the garage, but we do have a concerned neighbour, so there won't be any overlooking from that window, will there? Because it's obscure glazed.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. Thank you. Let's move on then to the rest of the report. It's quite a short report. So impact on neighbouring properties, landscape and trees, highways and parking, and anything else that you'd like to ask a question on. Councillor Rutter.
Thank you. I know that the applicant has mentioned the native tree planting on the boundary being beefed up a bit and so on. And I know that we've asked in condition 8 for a biodiversity enhancement plan, and it talks about bird boxes. But I'm just concerned that we really make sure that, and this is a great place to really improve the biodiversity. The wider pictures show a rather haphazard and bad, ill-kept site at the moment. So I just want some reassurance that we are serious about this enhancement plan, and that we really want to see, you know, swift boxes, bat boxes, whatever going in, as well as, you know, lots more planting and a real attempt to improve the biodiversity around the new house.
Absolutely. The safeguarding condition is there, condition 7, and we have discussed this with the applicant, who is more than happy to go through with us over what's required under that condition. And then once the information is submitted to us, then we shall obviously go through that, make sure it's satisfactory, and then discharge the condition.
Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Chair. I'm actually going back to design and layout, if I may. I had a hand raised not high enough. The report refers to DM23 and concludes that replacement drilling should not be disproportionately larger than existing, and calculates that the existing property is 132 square meters over both floors. As far as I'm able to calculate from the pictures, plans that we have, the proposed property is about 250, so almost twice the size. And I'm just wondering how much larger it could get before it became disproportionate, and really just asking if we could have a gloss on the word disproportionately in this context. Thank you.
Thank you. We're looking at the floor plans here, and we're looking at sort of a 3/4 bedroom dwelling house, which I think is a reasonable request of the applicant. And family living space and home working I think here that we could say that we are satisfied that it complies with policy. I don't think it is disproportionately too large for the site. I think it's appropriate size for the site, and I think it's appropriate and large enough for the original dwelling house.
Okay, Councillor.
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Westwood?
Thank you, Chair. You may have covered this already, so apologies if you have, but what protection do we have on the existing trees and hedges? I know there's a condition to plant native new hedges and so on. How do we protect what's there at the moment? Is it protected?
The trees aren't protected, and we've got in writing from the applicant that there's no intention to remove any trees on the site. But there is no condition to retain the trees.
Would it be appropriate to include a condition to retain the existing mature trees and hedges?
They're not TPOs, are they, the trees, which is the normal way that we retain trees? I'm looking at officers for the answer.
Sorry, Chair, I was just trying to look through the conditions and see what was there. Can you put the site plan up and show which, or a photo and show which?
Yes, I have. Sorry, we give that some presentation things. So we have hedging line the rear. Apologies. We have hedging to the rear of the site. And here we can see the hedge. We've got a boundary treatment all the way around, really. None of these would be impacted by development. So it's not that they're in danger. So we haven't had to put any restricted tree conditions on here because they would be impacted. As well as it's considered that we should be protecting the boundary line to the rear side of the site.
I just think, Chairman, it would be a little bit unreasonable, you know, there is an existing mature boundary vegetation there that's intended to be retained. If it's removed, you know, which any householder could do, couldn't they, once they're living in their home, they can decide how they treat their boundary. I doubt there's any intention to remove this hedgerow. It looks like it's serving a useful purpose, but I'm not sure it'd be reasonable to condition the retention of that in the longer term.
Thank you. Yes, and I would go along with your professional advice. The reason I raised it was from because we don't have the parish council here. It was in their notes that the view was in their note that hedges had already been removed and there were substantial trees and hedges that could still be affected by the development. That's the only reason I raised it, because in the parish council's note that they weren't here to actually say that. But I'll go with your professional view. Thank you.
Would this, Nicola, apply to hedges that have already been removed rather than the boundary hedges?
I think there have been concerns that some hedges along the roadside have been removed, and that's why we've actually put the condition on for native hedging to be put back to enhance that also alongside the roadside where the fences are. There is room to improve that boundary treatment, so that's where the condition is imposed.
Yes, carry on.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to hold the page up, but there is a picture of a crane, obviously, on the site at that point, and clearly there's no mission for business. Should I be concerned of seeing a picture of a crane on this site with a for hire sign across the side of it?
I've visited the site on many occasions. This application's been in for quite a while now, and I am confident that the site's not used for business purposes. However, if anything did come forward to us, the applicant is aware that if an application would be required for using that site for business purposes, this is a residential application that's been put forward, so that's what we're assessing.
That's fine, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Reid, with apologies, didn't see your hand.
Sorry, Chair, question's already been answered.
Okay. So I forget where we are now. Oh yes, we were looking at all the paragraphs at the end, weren't we? And I'm assuming that condition 8 will include Swifts.
Yes.
So there being no more questions on the report, debate. Councillor Rutter.
I just want to say that I think we've gone into this in some detail, and I hope that we've reassured near neighbours that there is no question of overlooking. Even from the house, it's significant distance from the new dwelling across the road to existing residences, and it's only a couple of bedrooms anyway, first floor. So I don't think that is any sort of overlooking issue, and the garage window that overlooks the driveway opposite will be opaque, so that is dealt with, and we've made it absolutely clear to the agent and within the conditions that any significant use, business use, either within the house or within the garden, would need a separate planning application. And we've reassured ourselves that the existing dwelling will be demolished within 3 months of the new one being occupied. So there's no question of an extra house being allowed in the countryside. So my concerns are reassured, and I will be supporting the application. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Venter.
Thank you very much. Yes, David Ogden, the chair of Parish Council, did let me know that he wouldn't be able to come today because he's got an appointment with his wife, medical appointment, I believe. He did express the view that the Sheffield Parish Council not unhappy with the development itself, but the concerns they raised were more to do with the business enterprising that seemed to be going on, but we've been reassured of here are not happening. There were also some concerns about things already going ahead, the fence around the site and other movement of the hedges pre any permission for planning. So I think that those were their concerns, but if it's going ahead as it is as a family house, I think they're quite happy with that. It is a very narrow road down there, which is why their concerns are about any commercial business.
Thank you. I personally feel that what is being proposed is an improvement to what's there now. It's a very attractive little house in the country, as opposed to something which is not, doesn't particularly have any beauty in it. And we have discussed the hedges. I think anyone would want to keep their privacy on the border. We've discussed the overlooking from the garage to the neighbour opposite and ascertained there won't be any overlooking. So I shall support this application. Any further comments? So this application has been recommended for approval. All those in favour, please show.
All members, Chair.
Thank you. So that application has been approved. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming along today.
Thank you. Just say hello to my good colleague, Fiona. I am the planning officer from the old days. So I was a planning consultant working in your area for about 40 years before I retired and moved to Spain.
Nice to see you here, Mr. Cox.
On the other side of enforcement cases.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Last item of business. I pressed the button and it just doesn't seem to come on. Apologies. The last item of business for the day, agenda item 11/20/02207/HOU. Amended plans and descriptions for a single-storey and two-storey front and rear extensions of 3 ways Heath Road, which is close to the Wickham, but is actually in the parish of Soberton. The case officer is Cameron Finch, who's here ready to give his presentation. Thank you, Cameron.
Thank you, Chair. So yeah, this is an extension to property at 3 ways. So we start with an aerial view. So it is sited within Soberton Heath. It's a semi-rural location. You see we've starred there the location of the site. This is the property. And then you've got the line of residential development that runs along Heath Road here, and then the junction with Liberty Road immediately to the front. So we have a site plan. The property is here. Indicated in the rear garden is outbuilding, which is currently under construction. So that should say front elevation. This is the street facing elevation of the property as existing. The neighbours on either side. This is the existing rear elevation with the dormer window, existing conservatory, which will be removed as part of this application. So we have the existing and proposed front elevation. So on the right, you can see the extension of the gable end and also the porch there. So this is a side view of the property. So this is the elevation which faces Cherry Cottage. You get the side elevation there of the front extension, and then that extension at the rear as well. So we have the existing and proposed rear elevation. So the extension here, bringing the rear wall out to the eaves of the rear elevation and then out to the sides as well, but maintaining the height of that dormer window. And then we have the other side elevation, which is the elevation that faces Greenacre, again showing the rear extension, porch here, and then front extension. And then we have the existing and proposed ground floor plans. And then the existing and proposed first floor plans, just showing their bedrooms, which are the proposed to come out to meet the side and rear elevations, and then the expansion at the front as well. This is the site photograph from the rear garden, and it shows it in relation to the property Greenacres. This is a site photograph from the front, the junction with Liberty Road, looking directly onto the site. This is a view from the north. So the front extension would appear just behind this house here. And then we have the view from the south, and the extension to the property on the front is here. And you'd just be able to glimpse the rear extension there as well. This is the view of the rear elevation from neighbouring property Greenacres. And then we have a side-on view from the property Cherry Cottage. 3 ways is set slightly back further away from the public highway than Cherry Cottage. So the extensions are here. And then the rear extension is largely screened by the trees on the boundary there. In conclusion, the recommendation is to permit. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you very much. And we have no public speakers, so we'll go straight into the report. And principle of development starts on page 135. So if we look at the first 2 paragraphs, principle of development and design and layout. No questions? I don't know why I put it down, but I did put down in my notes, removing permitted development. Pardon? I'm not too sure what. Do you want to answer that, Cameron?
We haven't recommended removing permitted development as part of this application. Should be noted, the outbuilding, which is within the rear garden, was constructed and done under permitted development, which may be where that's why that's been mentioned in the report, that we haven't proposed. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? So we move on to the two impacts: impact upon the character of the area and impact upon neighbouring amenity. No questions? And finally, the rest of the report. So that is landscape and trees, highways and parking, drainage, equality and the conditions. Councillor Pearson.
Yes, so this, Cameron, this is another situation, Surface Way, there's a drainage problem. It's on a clay cap again, which is, you think, well, hang on, there's a downland. How can be a drainage problem? It doesn't make sense, but there is, as you know. So can we be assured that there's enough within your conditions and safeguards to ensure an improvement of drainage off the site? That's going off the site, I mean, not rather than.
Thank you, Chair. So in terms of the drainage on site, we are aware there's a problem. The applicant is aware there is a problem. They committed through the permitted development to do the outbuilding to improve it. In this case, we mentioned in the update sheet, because they're not connecting into any new foul and the existing footprint isn't coming up, the conditions were deemed not necessary to control the drainage on the householder application. But we have had commitment in correspondence that the applicant is aware of the problem, and they've taken steps. In fact, I believe they are on the parish council flood awareness group. But for the purposes of the householder application, it was included, but we've had conversations that it's been deemed not necessary.
Is there a ditch along the front of the property?
Yes, there is a ditch along the front of the property.
Do your conditions therefore cover that ditch? Make sure it's kept clear.
They do not.
Okay, Councillor Pearson.
Yes, fine. The only other thing I might have said something about archaeology. This was during the war sites of Canadian army encampments, but I really don't think it's necessary. But you might want to say an archaeological what?
Yeah, as your microphone wasn't on, whether there's any archaeology concern.
Thank you, Chair. Because this extension, again, they're not actually increasing the external footprint of the property, then they won't be breaking new ground. So there won't be, the only new foundation will be for the very small porch at the front. So in this case, probably isn't necessary.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I didn't think it went beyond. So thank you, sir.
Okay, there being no further questions, this application, oh no, debate, we haven't had debate. Any debate?
Chairman,
Councillor Reid.
many of the properties in this locality have had additions made to them, alterations over the last 20 years, and this is just one that's more or less trying to catch up. We can see no plain reason to refuse.
Councillor Pearson.
Yes, Chairman, this, as you know, Heath Road is, shall we say, an eclectic mix of housing. To describe a character, a common character along here is impossible. All the houses have been series of development. There is a pond at the junction of Liberty and Heath Road on the other side of the road, but I'm not aware, I've not been aware that that's overflown, certainly not in my memory, which goes back 50 or so years. So I don't think that need be an issue in case somebody does mention it. No, there are no planning reasons that I'm aware of this, why this should be turned down. They're doing no more than a whole series of members have already done, making their house, quite frankly, more livable. So I support very much what Cameron's conclusion is.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further contributions to debate? So this application has been recommended for approval. There's an update to the conditions on the update sheet that the removal of condition 4 drainage, because it was for an outbuilding, which is not part of this proposal anymore. So all those in favour of approving this application, please show.
All members, Chair.
Thank you very much. So this application is approved. And that brings to a conclusion today's planning development control. Thank you very much for your attendance.